All right, well, welcome to another edition of our Create the Ripple podcast. I am your host, Candice Smiley, and I'm pretty tickled about my guest today. You all know, I never look too far ahead to see who's coming up. So I have the opportunity to meet my guests at the same time that all of you do. For those of you who are maybe new to the podcast, there's a video component. There's also an online component. So you can find us wherever you love to stream your podcasts, whether that's on YouTube or iTunes or iHeartRadio or Spotify. We're all over the place. But the premise behind it is really to trust the niggle and tell the truth. And so we typically engage in conversation with those who are out there influencing. An influencer podcast really is just about having conversations with people who are on plan, on purpose, and living their life the way that they really want to. So, without any further ado, I would love my guest to introduce herself to you, and then we're going to dive right into some questions.
Thank you so much, Candice. And thank you for having me on today. I mean, this is exciting and thank you. I appreciate it. Gosh, I am a psychic medium and I have been doing this for over 15 years. And I can't express how much I love what I do. I wake up with a smile every day. That's how much I love what I do. And I do it full time. I connect with spirit like every day. I teach classes. I do one-on-one mediumship. I do group readings. And the things that come through just make me smile because it's those little things. It's those little tiny things that mean the most to someone that they sit back and go, there's no way she'd know that. There's no way she would know that. And I've got to say what really motivated me to get my button gear was my mother's passing. But I want to push it back a little further for a second, saying I was definitely born with this because I can remember being little and being in my room and hearing things, hearing people. And going into my parents' room at night saying, there's people in my room. And after the second time, they said, no, there isn't. And I could tell they were irritated. That's when I never said anything to anybody again until I was like 40. Mm-hmm. Actually, a little over 40. So kind of sad that I didn't feel like I could share it. And it was from, the age of 4 that I knew, just shut up about it, don't say anything. But with my mother's passing, she was terrified to pass, just terrified. And she was in hospice. I was with her. And it was, 10 days she had. And basically hospice, when they say a time, they're usually pretty right. Uh-huh. And we couldn't even talk about it. And I thought, how sad is this? We can't talk about this. I have to pretend this isn't happening. And that's when I said, I need to do something so people aren't afraid to pass.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really interesting. So I'm intrigued in talking with you because instantly as you started, there was this niggle for me that's like, oh, look, you can be honest about yourself today. And I was like, darn it. My guests have this way of showing up and I mean, I joke often on the podcast, and my listeners know this, that I think I get the most out of doing these things, right? It's an incredible joy to interview people like you, but it never fails. There's a theme, there's a thought, there's this, and I tell that to people all the time so that they can be reminded and remember that nothing actually happens on accident. And so it's really interesting that you brought that up because I would say that I also have some spiritual gifts. And I wasn't necessarily squashed, but they weren't necessarily encouraged, I think maybe from a lack of understanding or from how I grew up. And so I can totally relate, as you're saying, you didn't really tap into this until way later in your life. Did you have a sense, though, of its influence in your life between 4 and 40? Because I know I can say look back and see I was using the gifts, but maybe not aware of it in the same way, or mine certainly have shown up in some of the advantages I find in my businesses or how I interact with people. Right? People say, well, you just understand people. And I'm like, yeah, I have the gifts, but I'm not as comfortable as you in talking about it in the same way that you do. So I'd love to hear how you still saw your gift, even though you weren't working on it or receiving it in the same way you are now. How did that affect your life between 4 and 40?
Absolutely. So, with me also is, people always will say, oh, well, what a coincidence. Oh, that was luck. And I think I went through a lot of life saying that, because I was just, I got to block that out and blocking that out kind of a thing. But I always had gut feelings on things. I always had that sense of someone else around me. It's like I could feel it. And I have been told by so many people that, Maria, you were like a CFO in another lifetime. And I just kind of laugh because with business, I am good at manifesting and pulling things in. I am very much about business and doing that kind of a thing where someone might look and say, well, you don't really have the background. You don't really have the training, kind of a thing. But then when they see what I've accomplished, they say, there's something to what you're doing. So absolutely, I definitely use the gifts without a huge awareness. But now that I use them with an awareness and a gratitude. So every single day, probably about 100 times a day, I am stopping and saying, and I have this sense of humor too, where if something happens, good or bad, I will start laughing and saying, oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you. That was a painful lesson, but thank you so much for that lesson. And you know what? I'm going to try not to repeat that. So thank you. And I remind people of, no matter how painful that lesson was, you learn something from it. You won't repeat it, hopefully.
Yeah.
And you're able to move forward as long as you do it with gratitude because you're lifting that vibration up.
Well, and one of the words that keeps coming up for me as you're talking is the word around intention. You're now using your gift intentionally, right? There's an awareness. And I think that's magical. And I love that you talked about laughing about it. Because I can totally relate. And I'm sure some of the other people with gifts and senses have that same sense. Something happens and you're like, well then.
Oh, and I've got one where I was walking down the stairs and it was kind of dark. I really should have put the light on. And I missed 2 stairs and I tore the fascia like on the bottom of my foot and cracked the top. And it was so painful. But I kid you not, I started laughing at that moment and said, oh my God, I hear you. I know I wasn't listening. I will do that now. Thank you. As I'm calling to make the doctor's appointment because I really messed up my foot. But I'm not kidding. At that moment, I did laugh and I did thank the universe.
I think it becomes really interesting and it gives an interesting perspective. And I love that we're talking about this because a couple of things have come up for me in the last few days, sort of this, you are where you are and that's okay, right? And there's some of this awareness and some of the laughing of, well, didn't I set that up well? Or, didn't you see that one coming? And also this sense of, what is meant for you doesn't bypass you. And for a long time in my life, that was something that really ruled in my life was I didn't want to miss it. And so was sort of in that rat race energy. And the last, whether it's because of, the shutting down of the world that really mirrored sort of what I needed in my own space and in my own energy, which allowed me to tap into more of this feminine side, more of the receiving side, to really acknowledge some of these gifts and acknowledge some of the things that people have called an idiosyncrasy, who have maybe said, if you were just this way, it wouldn't be so bad. And I'm like, well, actually, maybe that's the way I'm made and maybe that's okay. And maybe I'm going to stand in that and go, yeah, so I'm your starter and I'm your finisher. Don't put me in the middle stuff. Okay. And sort of just this understanding and really coming to respect, who I am and the gifts I bring. And even though there's some challenges with those sometimes, right, that the plot twists that show up, I'm like, wow, didn't see that one coming. Tell me about the moment. So you're 40, in your 40s, when you began to use your gift with intention, what happened? I mean, beyond your mom passing, but how was that shift for you? Because I know that there are listeners on in my podcast certainly who know they're something special, know they have something more to do. And how did they shift from that knowing into the living, not just the doing, right? But the living in it, as you say, right? You're living in gratitude with your gift.
So probably, I'm going to say at age 30 is when these just gut feelings about things. But we don't always say, oh, but there were things going on around me in my life that could no longer be ignored. And just these strong, and it's when you have those gut feelings and you're trying to shove things down, it hurts even more. But I'm really good at shoving things down. So I was able to do that for like another 10 years. And I laugh about it now thinking, oh my gosh, but I learned so much. Mm-hmm. So I don't regret anything because I learned so much. Mm-hmm. And then at age 35, these things and this knowing of stuff just was getting stronger and stronger and stronger, where if someone was lying to me, I would just look at them and go, oh, okay. But I'm going, you're lying. Why are you lying to me? Mm-hmm. Like those things just stronger and stronger. And then probably right around age 40 is when I thought, you know what, I'm going to take like a class. And then it was the universe going, oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, finally she's listening and she's going to start stepping into this kind of a thing going on. And I mean, I've had like some crazy things that the universe will show me as to, are you sure you want to be doing this? Like one time when I was in this relationship and I kept thinking, this probably isn't the best thing. I really need to get out of this. And as we're driving to lunch, I look over and I see a dead white horse in a field. Not kidding. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, maybe it's just sleeping. Maybe it's just one of those, it's got to be sleeping where after lunch, I'm like, can we just like drive back? And I just need to see that. And I'm like, it's dead. Oh my. And then that was it. I'm like, thank you. I need to get out of this. And thanks for showing me in a big way. Because who the heck sees a dead white horse?
Funny way to life. When you're with the person that you're thinking, maybe I shouldn't be with them anymore. No, I'm laughing because I would call that annoying feeling that doesn't go away, that makes you know you need to do something different, the niggle, which is the entire premise of this, because I have ignored the niggle in my life for most of my life, usually because, life doesn't always just give you this clear path, although my brother had one of those, and I really appreciate that, but I've never had that. My path is like, detours. That's gonna be one of my books in the future. Detours, right? As I detour for 3 or 4 years and come back to the same spot, move into the same house or the same street or the same neighborhood. And I'm just like, wow, okay, did I learn something? Clearly, right? There's another chapter for the book. But these moments that happen where I can remember an instance in my own life where I knew I needed to make a change, definitely a relationship, definitely the way things were going, and stopped at a stop sign, suddenly got sideswiped by somebody. And a friend of mine, a very intuitive individual, was there when I pulled over, and she's like, what were you thinking about? She didn't ask if I was okay. What were you thinking about when that happened? And I was like, and it turns out that this relationship I was in was definitely a major crash in my life. And it was almost a premonition of, things to come. Was I fine? Yeah, I totally walked away without a scratch almost. However, there was certainly this, crash in life. And I think, how cool is that? But how many people, even just if they don't have a gift necessarily, that some of these things actually happen to people and they're just not paying attention. So how cool is it that you're aware? Okay, so you see the white horse, you start shifting, you start listening to the universe. How did this become a full-time business for you? How did that happen? Because I know a lot of people with gifts would love for that kind of thing to happen.
I just started moving into it more and more.
Mhm.
So, after the dead white horse in that relationship, of course, I'm in another relationship
Mm.
where I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is my forever.
Yeah.
But I kept having those gut feelings of something being off, but I couldn't figure out what it is, kind of a
Mhm.
thing.
Yes.
But you know what? Again, I'm good at shoving things down. Not anymore. But that went on for almost 8 years until, oh yeah. I'm going to say I used to be, because I will not repeat these
Yes.
things that I used to do, but I would be I'm going to make this square peg fit in the round hole. I'm going to make this work. This will work.
Hey, it's Candice. I hope you're really enjoying the show. I know I certainly am. I want to give a big shout out to one of the products that I absolutely love using. So this is 36-year-old skin, and I am in love with it. Yes, I am wearing a teeny tiny bit of foundation. I'm wearing a little bit of eyeshadow, but in general, I want to go like really, really close. This is my skin. Phenomenal, right? So I recently started using a product called BioCell. BioCell is liquid collagen. Now, there's a lot of buzz about collagen right now, but you want to find one that mirrors closest the human kind of collagen. I was super impressed with this particular collagen. This is made with only the sternums of chickens. So that's the, the sternum bone of chickens in a place that has already ethically and humanely taken care of these chickens. And so we're basically using a part of the chicken that would normally just disappear and be used for other things. I have not gotten into the collagen world before now, mostly because I know that a lot of the collagens out there, especially the powdered collagen, they have things like cow hooves and pig hooves and noses, and I just wasn't interested in putting that sort of thing in my body. I do try to live a more plant-based lifestyle. This is one of the few products that I allow to have animal in it, but I absolutely love it. I'm also really impressed with the company behind it. They're a values-driven company, and if you know from watching any of my shows, values matter to me. They've got a number of values. One, to be disruptive in the industry, and you know me, I like to be a little bit irreverent and go against the grain once in a while. I also really love that one of their values is humility and compassion, because those are huge and important to me. So if you're looking for a place to spend your money, and no, it's not an arm and a leg, no, it's not an MLM, this is affiliate marketing, which means if you did decide to purchase this product, yes, I would in fact get a small commission, which has nothing to do with your products or your purchase or the price point on the product, to be honest with you. It is simply 10 to 36% for me, depending on how many of this awesome product that I get a chance to move. Also, I'm paid daily, which I think is pretty amazing. So if you're somebody who's looking for some collagen and you just want to be your customer, I have got a $10 code. Drop a link or a comment below, or feel free to message me and I will share with you my link so that you can get $10 off of your first order. If you are somebody who's thinking, hey, I would like to get some product and also like to break into the affiliate game, that's a passion for me. I love teaching women and men, but mostly women, how to master the affiliate game. Once you learn how to do it with one company, you can do it with anything else. So I hope that you're enjoying the show. And without any further ado, back to the show.
And that happens a lot with an empath. Empaths attract narcissists. It just is what it is. And that is my relationships. So I am grateful now that I'm shown really clear signs. Like I'll feel it right here and I back off right away. But also I want to say, for the first time in my life, like, I don't even want like, it's been 2.5 years that I've had this beautiful break. And I got to say, since high school, and this is really sad to say, like very sad, that this is the longest break I've ever had without having a relationship. And I am loving it.
Right.
I am loving it. Like I'm doing like a 5-year break.
That's
This
awesome.
is the best decision. And what happened is also, I wasn't listening to spirit about, really, do you really think this is your forever person? Maybe this was just a, so are you sure you're done with narcissists kind of a thing? And again, I thank the universe for that lesson because I clearly got it now. And as soon as I ended that relationship, I can't tell you all the doors. And all of the things that I was told by this person, the last relationship that I couldn't do, that I thought, all that was a lie.
Yeah.
All that was a lie. I was told I wasn't a writer. Well, look, I wrote a book.
You wrote a book.
I wrote a book.
I'm excited about your book. I was like, I got to read this book. That's awesome.
Thank you. And it has helped. Like I get people, sending me an email. Oh my gosh, I just got your book. Thank you so much. And the book is exactly what I wanted. I wanted something that was an easy read, that had pictures, that was like you could bring it on the plane and read it, and you would be done by the time you got to your destination. Because how many times have we put down a book and not picked it back up? No matter how good it was. So that's what I wanted in the book. And I wanted people to have a better understanding of there is no death. There's only life. There is no death. And I've had many people say, I'm not afraid of passing now. Thank you. I'm not afraid. After I read this, and I thought, oh my gosh, if that even just helped one person, I'm so grateful. But all the people that have messaged me, I am beyond grateful. And then I was asked to be one of the authors in The Last Breath, which it's mediums and psychics like from all around the world. I think there's 46 of us that are in the book with different stories in the book. And so that was exciting.
Yeah.
And teaching, I was also told I wasn't a teacher. And I teach many classes, and my students, they love the classes. So it's just because someone tells you that you can't do something or you're not good enough for that, don't believe them, because a lot of times that's just their fear. That's their insecurities and their fear. And if there's one big message I can get through with this is there is no death, only life. And if someone tells you you can't do something, just take that as a challenge and run with it and go and do it.
Yeah. I agree so completely. And I think it's interesting because last year in 2020, there was an opportunity for me to take a break. And I thought, oh, well, like you, it had been a long time since I had been out of a relationship with any kind of intention to be out of a relationship. Right? I'd left a relationship that was actually very good, but it wasn't perfect. And I knew it wasn't. And largely now that I'm looking back, hindsight's 2020, to realize that I needed to be broken open so that some of these other things could finally come out and some changes could happen. And I thought I was going to be single for a long time. I was ready for that, was making plans in that way, and was actually gently nudged by the universe a different way, which was really, really which is quite fun and funny to me, right? They say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, right? And I've often thought of that because I think, well, I had a plan and now I'm not, right? Now we fast forward and, we're expanding the family, and my life has taken an entirely different direction than I would have thought even a year ago, because a year ago I was still very much in the middle of quite a bit of healing and getting back in touch with my own soul and really listening to, I was podcasting before. However, this trust the niggle and then tell the truth, it's less about telling the truth to other people, right? It's kind of like that word integrity. Everybody thinks it's a very outward word. And I really feel like truth, trust, integrity, those start in here first.
Yeah.
So you got to tell yourself the truth first. People say, like you, I'm pretty good at telling when people are lying to me. And I usually often feel like, well, you're lying to yourself first. I just happen to be standing in front of you and your mouth is moving. But
Yeah.
and I think, well, you'll get there. You'll get there eventually when you tell yourself the truth. And that's usually because I'm like, well, what truth am I not telling myself, right? What am I pretending not to know, not to feel? And the truth generally is inconvenient in terms of what you're supposed to do with your life. And people say, well, you set out on this plan. I said, I know, but I don't get that clear cut plan and this is what I'm going to do until I die. I start in a direction, usually with both feet all the way in, because that's just who I am. And then a part way through, the little tap on my shoulder goes, and I'm like, really? Okay, fine, readjusting. But I mean, even a plane, right? Both my dad and my brother are pilots, and pilots constantly course correct, constantly, right? There might be turbulence; they got to go above the turbulence, or they go down below the turbulence. But there's always sort of this course correction to end up back where you want to be. And I think that there's one thing I could get across to people in this is stop worrying so much. Just show up, listen, trust, make the adjustments, make the changes. It's so much better on the other side of answering that niggle and trusting the niggle, or answering your calling. So what is it like? I'm curious. What is it like living as a medium? I mean, I'm seeing people, hearing people, you hear and see both. What is that like? Just what is that like to take your life?
For me, and I have to remind people because so when I do a reading too, I also get my client to laugh because a lot of times they're nervous and then that can kind of shut down some of the energy and depending on how nervous they are. So we'll have a conversation beforehand. I'll go over how I do the reading. I'll get them to laugh so that they know, oh, it's just Maria, I'm okay. Like, we're friends. It's going to be okay. Nothing bad's going to be coming in. And so I do, occasionally will remind people, I'll do this more in classes when I'm teaching because they'll think, well, isn't it supposed to be like Melinda and Ghost Whisperer? And I'm like, no, unfortunately, no, I wish it was. I wish they would come up to me and have a full-blown conversation like that. But no, in reality, that is not the way it is. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'll when I say I see them, it's like in the third eye. So it's like when you're remembering, oh, the beach was so beautiful that day and the sand was so white and the ocean was so blue. And then you start seeing that picture in here. That's what happens with me. So they might show me pictures, they might show me a movie, but that's how I see it. And then hearing it is also the same way, kind of like when you have a thought and it's in here. Mm-hmm. That's how I'll start hearing it. Occasionally I'll smell things, like if someone was a smoker, they might tell me that way I'll start smelling smoke. Or if they wore really heavy perfume, I'll start smelling that. And most of it, though, is I'll have a feeling. So it's this feeling of. And then they might go into the other things where I'll start seeing it or hearing it. But it just starts out with this feeling of for me. Which I tell people, I'm like, I know it's really bizarre to say I've got a feeling of that your father had dark hair, but that's how it will start to be. It will be this feeling of. Mm-hmm. And I am grateful, beyond grateful, to be able to pass on these healing messages. For example, I had one just yesterday where a woman was holding in this anger for ever. Like, I believe it was 40 years, she said. And with the messages that her family was giving her from the other side and things that there's no way I could know, she was able to let it go. Like, and sincerely let it go, not just saying, okay, I let that go. Like, no, she really let it go and said, I'm going to let it go now. Thank you. She said, I can't believe this. And I can't believe that you got me to this position or to this place because no one has ever been able to. But I can let that go now of what they did. I can let it go.
I think something that's coming up in terms of a question for me, and I wonder sometimes for my listeners, especially the ones that are maybe just beginning to engage in more of this, more spiritual side. It tends to be a lot of my listeners are sort of on journey to understand more. Do you find, 'cause I mean, we've seen on the TV, right, that it's like whether it's the ghost whisperer or whatever, but they almost seem invasive. Do you find that when you get those senses, they're invasive, or is it more something when you choose to tap in? Because I think that's a fear thing for a lot of people, right? They're like, well, what if I had this gift? Will I be bothered all the time? And I think, especially when we start off with things like when we were kids, we knew there were people in a room. I know that was certainly, for me, I've learned to manage that energy, but sometimes it's just a knowing, right? Like you look over your shoulder and you're like, oh, right,
Right.
right, or this understanding, like you say. And I'm wondering too, you say a feeling, and I wonder if the reason it's so difficult for us to understand and really give credit, I guess, as a word, to a feeling or to understanding a feeling is we've been taught for so many years that we can't trust our feelings, right? As kids, we're taught not to trust. I don't want to hug, so and so, and mom says, "Well, just go do it." Right? We're uncomfortable. We don't trust our feelings, and so I think when you say, "I have a feeling of," people are wary because we haven't really, as a society and certainly as women, really encouraged each other to trust that feeling. And that feeling is our gut, and the gut is never wrong, which is really entertaining. And I mean, that's a side note for sure, but it felt important to say for someone, whether they're talking with you or whether they're beginning to experiment with their own gifts and they have a feeling, explore that feeling, lean into it, and show up with some kind of curiosity. Because I know that when I show up curious, it's really interesting what shows up for me. So, do you find them invasive, or how do you find that in terms of managing your energy? Because I know for a lot of empaths, managing our energy is something we have to learn, or we self-destruct, right? And we become very self-destructive.
Boundaries. So you have to set boundaries, and boundaries can be uncomfortable for us because we're givers.
Mhm.
We're givers, and we're definitely the, oh, I got that. You need that? Oh, I got that. Because we're also multitaskers. We
Yes.
can do a lot. And we can endure a lot of pain and suffering, unfortunately. So it's learning that I don't need to endure all that pain and suffering because that's not what it's supposed to be. I'm putting up these boundaries, and it's okay to say no. Because when I go to the grocery store, believe me, my boundaries are put up, and I don't. Now, occasionally I'll get a mom. It's the moms that get me. It's the moms in spirit that will get me. But I tell them, I'm not going to pass on that message. I will not do that. So I think a couple times what I have done is given a compliment. And it's always like to a daughter. So I might see the daughter, and as the mom is just nagging me, and I'm like, I'm not giving a message, just stop. I will give the daughter a compliment and say, oh my God, that is beautiful. Where did you get that? I love that. I'll do that for the mom so that she'll just kind of like leave me alone a little bit. But I feel that that's pretty invasive to the person. If I went up to someone in a grocery store and said, oh, your mom says hi. What if that mom and her did not get along in life, and that daughter had some trauma because of the mother, and then here I go and do that? I don't do that. And I would never do that. So the only acceptance where there might be is if you are like in Salem and you're like on one of those ghost tours. And I'm saying this because this happened, and it was a mom that got me, and I'm on one of those tours, and it's with both my daughters, and the mom would not leave me alone, going, please tell my daughter she really needs to step it up with her health. So, and I'm sitting there fighting it, going, no, go away, no. The husband ends up sitting next to me. And then I'm like, okay, all right. And this was the kicker. The husband goes, and he's, because we're on like this ghost thing, he goes, so did you hear anything? But he's not talking about that. He's talking about, I am just dying laughing inside. And I look at him and I go, yes, I've got some messages for your wife if she wants them. I'm a medium. And he is just like beyond happy. And he's like, oh my God, she's going to be so excited. So after the whole thing, we stepped outside and I gave the messages and they were so excited. But otherwise, no, it's boundaries. It's boundaries.
Wow. So then what's next for you? Because you were talking about your teaching. People obviously can reach out if they want to chat with you, maybe connect with somebody that they're looking to connect with. But I want to sort of know what you're up to and how people can connect to you, or what's on your mind and your heart, and what's next for you. I mean, you've written a couple of books now. I've been a part of that. What's next for you, and how can we share that?
Well, I can't even believe I've got another book in my head because I fought the book because I'm telling you, I was brainwashed that I couldn't write a book. So now, and I have people asking me, so when's the next book, Maria? When I'm like, oh my God, you want another book? So it's kind of like I've got that in my head. And I've got a book signing first weekend of June in Palmer Park, Michigan. If anyone's going to be there, come visit me and say hi. And classes, I just put up on my website, mariaverdeschi.com. I put up some classes that are, I believe that they're in the fall. So mediumship classes and connecting with your loved one classes. I love teaching. I really have a passion for teaching and for helping other people that have this gift, and to really let them know your gut is never wrong. So yes, I was like, yes, because that comes in readings a lot where I'm telling women, your gut's never wrong. You always trust your gut because it's never wrong. And I also teach that in classes with mediumship. Your gut's never wrong.
Mm-hmm. That's powerful. And I'm glad that you bring that up, because I think at least I'm on a mission right now, having, been tapped into my feminine energy. I think that one of the reasons why, I'm pregnant again is because it's really sort of forcing me, gently, but forcing me to stay in that more feminine receiving creation space, which is magical, which is literally, I step outside now of what I'm supposed to be doing, or I start to push versus, the trusting and the listening and the receiving, and I get tired. Like instant, okay, course correct. And then the challenge has been, how do you course correct with, integrity and intention? And what's interesting is even when you're saying those things, and they make changes or they're having an impact on other people, when they're from your truth and they have that integrity element to them of, this is like real for me, people receive them entirely differently. Or as I was smiling as you were chatting, I was thinking, I really love who ends up on my podcast, because sometimes it doesn't always, connect right away, or it doesn't always work right away. Or recently I've had some challenges around scheduling as I've been sort of adjusting and trusting the niggle and listening to that and watching who's been there and thinking, boundaries are really important in this. And sometimes those things that you're, rather than pushing through them, there's a lesson there, at least for me recently, to listen to that. So I'm glad that you bring that up, because I think for a lot of people, if we could just learn to listen to our guts, that's a really, really powerful place to be. And what kind of a world we live in if we just trusted ourselves first? How can we even think about trusting somebody else if we don't first trust ourselves? That's just
exactly. And I'm all about empowering, especially women. So like, if you come to a reading with me, you're going to feel empowered by the time you leave, because that's a big thing that I want to do. And I end up with a lot of women that are in narcissistic relationships, of course. And I start seeing the eggshells. That's how spirit tells me. I see the eggshells, and then I sit back and I go, oh, okay, I know what this is.
Are you looking for a simple, easy weight management solution? I thought you might be. I know I was. I also wasn't interested in something with a ton of gimmick without any science behind it, which I know a ton of companies have. The company I'm about to share with you actually has 12 of their own clinical studies. And for me, with my science-based background, I needed to know that. I also needed to know the product worked. And so I was introduced to the group that over had 125,000 members in it, all supporting amazing stories of weight management, weight loss, hair regrowth. Oh my gosh. Not surprising though, considering the product itself has won numerous awards in and out of the nutraceutical industry, which I think is pretty incredible. Pretty exciting as well is the fact that it's made with their patented technology, 7 international patents on the collagen in this product, made entirely from chicken sternum. Chicken sternum, why? Because it most closely mimics the collagen that our own bodies create. Now, I'm a 36-plus-year-old woman, and so making sure that I'm maintaining and taking care of and trying to reverse the clock so I can age gracefully is super important to me. Making sure I'm taking products that are safe, making sure I'm taking products that are approved, and making sure I'm taking products that I would be happy to share because there's integrity at the top. So this company is a values-based company, which I absolutely love. Not only do I love that, but I love the flavors. This is mango. Mango's my favorite. This is from the Modera company, which you've heard me talk about before. 1 simple spoonful a day. In the morning, I can add it to my coffee if I feel like it. I don't add the mango, I add the vanilla to my coffee, but I can add a simple spoonful to my day. It tastes awesome. It tastes amazing. And it's helping my body to maintain the figure that I've worked to get to. Why not? Now, if you're looking for some weight management, this is going to help curb appetite. It's going to help your body to function as best. And we know that when you do something like that and you make wiser choices, your body says thank you. This is part of an entire system called the Lean Body System. I will make sure to post information for that below, or you're welcome to scan the QR code, which I know is going to be somewhere in the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, head over to modere.ca. That's MODERE, modere.ca, or modere.com, and use code 5579027. Again, 5579027 to save $10 on your next order, regardless of what you put in your cart. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the listen.
So for these women, how could I just do a reading and then buy? Because when you're in this kind of relationship, especially, I had one yesterday that she's been in it for 30 years.
Wow.
So I'm not just going to like buy. I always tell them, all right, listen, I've got some tools that you're going to need for your tool belt. And I have people that I give them as references, you know, like energy workers and that. And these are all people that I've used that I trust, that I do not get kickbacks from or anything. I give these people out because with some things going on in our lives, it's not just a reading. We need other tools.
Yeah, that's a really big thing for me is, you know, in spite of some of the gifts that I've got and some of the modalities that I've learned and some of the things I use, I don't want to be the coach. I don't want to do the thing, but I love doing this so that I can connect people to people I trust, right? Like someone like you. When someone says, do you know? I'm like, actually, I do. And I trust her, which is a big deal. And yes, I'm loving that. And I love to hear that. I'm not surprised that you would, you know, have similar thoughts. I'm not surprised these days that I'm attracting, I'm attracting, which is wonderful. And, you know, it's like, thank you. But before we wrap up, I always wanted to make sure that if you've got something that you'd love to share, and I know we've touched on a couple of those pieces throughout, but if there's something on your mind and your heart that you want to share, you know, I would love for you to do that, and we'll sort of bring this in for a close.
So I really want everyone to walk away with, or maybe if you can't fully walk away with it, just let it sit with you, that there is no death, there's only life, that there is life over on the other side. It's not nothing. And your loved ones really do connect with you, and your loved ones, they want to help you. They really want to help, and they want to help you move forward in whatever it is that you're doing. And it's trusting your gut. Trust your gut on everything. If it feels off, it's off. There is no, you can save yourself so much time by just saying, this feels off. Okay, I'm done. This is off. You can save yourself a lot of time and energy by listening to your gut. So I also tell people that. But I also say, don't beat yourself up if you we'll give a relationship as an example. If you were in a relationship for a long time and it did seem off, but you stayed, don't beat yourself up over that, because look at how much you learned, and you needed to be in it for that learning experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's being kinder to yourself too.
Yeah, I was thinking about what you said about, the fact that we as empaths, we tend to carry a lot of this pain. And I know for me, I stuffed it into my body for years. And I'm learning to be more gentle, and seeing the, effects of anxiety begin to show up, right? That were probably there for forever, but I was just living off cortisol for so long, that, now it's like this unwinding of trauma, right? And such an interesting space to be in, and realizing that so many other people are in the same space. And we're totally going to call this episode Trust Your Gut, because I think it's just magical. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it should be. And you just, if it's off, it's off. Oh my gosh, I have told hundreds and hundreds of people that. Even, this is funny, because remember, I like to laugh about things that I've done. I am the person that could fall in a crowd, trip over my feet, and get up and go, I'm okay, and start laughing, because I have humor about myself. I have to. Mm-hmm. But boy, if it's off, it's off. But also be kind to yourself, because we beat ourselves up, and it's always, oh, I could have been better. Why wasn't I better? And why didn't I do this? It's, try not to do that. Try to be kinder to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think too, and something that's coming up for me to share is that, that whole boundary piece that you talked about. And for my listeners, I've got a couple podcasts we've done on boundaries. But one of the things I learned last year, as I started stepping really into this energy and just sort of accepting myself for who I was, right? Gifts and all, right? Scars and all, was that no is a complete sentence. That is still challenging for me as an empath, as a former people pleaser. When I realize something isn't working, to just say, this isn't working for me, and full stop, right? Or I need a break, or I need to think about this, or, any of those transition out words. It's tough. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that for someone who's listening and saying, well, I know it's wrong, but you have no idea how hard it's going to be to make the change. Well, no, I don't know your circumstances, but I do know the cost to me. And yes, it was awful. However, the other side is so much better. I mean, I still struggle with some anger that I'm letting go of. And I think to myself, I've never been this angry in my entire life. And I think it's because I never was this angry in my entire life. And there's some things that have happened to me I should have been angry about. And I wasn't. I endured them. I put up with them. I said, I apologized for them. And so now it's like this whole thing. And it's like, I acknowledge it. It's okay. What is this trying to teach me? And so I think, yeah, I mean, the parts of this healing bit, and I can tell that you're still sort of like, you're so human, and I love that. So you're rising, you're transcending, I get that, but it's like, oh my gosh, she's human. I love this. It's just, I want my listeners to really walk away with a sense of that, you or myself, we're no different than anybody else. We're just listening, laughing about it, amused. No end. I really was amused at your falling down the stairs piece. The other day, I was stressing about something, and I had completely missed that my foot had fallen asleep. And I got up, still thinking about this thought, and literally just about went, tumbling, because there was nothing there to stand on, and burst out laughing at myself. And I went, good call. It's time to stop ruminating in that thought. Yes, I'm afraid to step forward. I don't know what I'm going to step onto, but even if I fall on my face, I'm going to be okay. I think I wish more people could get to that place, like you certainly have. And as I'm getting to recognize, okay, I got it. There's the dead white horse. I should pay attention.
Yes.
What an analogy for you. Oh my word.
Oh yeah, I've had some big signs like that where I have to laugh, but the dead white horse is definitely one of the bigger ones. But oh yeah, and when I think it was at age 40, my mom apologized. She was still living, and when I was 40, she apologized for raising me to be too nice. She goes, you know what, Maria, we did a disservice to you. We raised you to be too nice. And she apologized. I was raised to, you only say yes, you smile, and basically you trust all adults, right? And you are respectful to all adults.
All of them. Yeah.
You're right.
It's interesting you bring that up because, you know, going back to this whole anger thing, it had come up for me and I had had a moment of anger and I had not handled that well in front of my daughter. And I remember thinking to myself, that's not the thing I want to show her, right? This sort of a momentary outburst, not at her or anything, just, you know, she witnessed that, me losing control, dealt with it, came back, followed through, and then was overwhelmed by this thought of no, part of the challenge I'm going through is I never saw my mother get angry. I saw her seethe, right? Internally, bite her tongue, you know, channel that back inside. I saw her go passive, and I love my mom. So this is nothing against, I'm just saying my observation was I never saw her get angry when I think she could have. And certainly never saw it from my grandmother or you know, the women who raised them, for sure, never. And I thought, no, I want my daughter to say, this isn't right, this isn't cool, I'm angry. And so I actually sat her down. I said, number one, mommy's sorry because she didn't handle that well, but I'm not mad or upset that you saw that I got angry, because mommy is angry. Mommy needs to work on that. So that's on mommy. It's not you, it's me. Okay. And she's like, well, she knew it wasn't her, but you know, there was some fear there. I said, but I want you to know it's okay to be angry. What's not okay is to lash out at people. And we had this great conversation about it. And she said, well, mommy, sometimes I do get angry and I don't know what to do. And I said, then you come talk to me and we're going to figure out how you can express that angry or how you can go through that. And even now, it's just like, it feels good for me to have taken that moment and went shift, because I was like, no, there's lots of things she could be angry about. There's lots of things a lot of us could be angry about. And how we handle it is certainly the emotional intelligence piece that I want to pass on to her and so many other people that have just yet to develop some of those emotionally intelligent muscles that, oh my gosh, your gut is never wrong. And so
And I love that. I love that you are doing that with your daughter. That's like what I've done with my 3 kids, is try to pass on what wasn't so functional in my house. I, at age 4, literally, I can remember age 4 in Long Island going, yeah, I'm not going to treat my kids like that. I'm going to do different. So I cut the cords to the family with how things were done. And I did it much different with my 3 kids, to where my mother used to tell my kids, you are so lucky. Do you know how lucky you are to have your mom? I wish your mom was my mom. Yeah. But I broke those cords like you.
I just think, you know, well, I mean, I look at the world today, right? Like it's changing so fast, and it has been, I mean, at least through my 37 years, and who knows what it's going to be by the time she's in university and beyond. You know, if there's one thing I can give her, it's an emotional intelligence to know when it's appropriate and when it's not. So we talk about that a lot. When is it appropriate to express this, and who is it appropriate to express it to, but not that she has to bury it. And it's such an interesting space, and I want her to trust her gut. If she says, mommy, something doesn't feel right, I'm like, oh, I'm paying attention, kiddo, because your gut is way more in tune than mine is, you know, even at this, or I don't want to do that. Tell me more about that, right? And I think that we just give each other that whole freedom to be able to show up in that way. And it really is a powerful thing. Anyway, I think could talk for a long, long time. So hint, hint, nudge, nudge to my listeners. If you were having as much fun talking to my guest as you think you could have talking to my guest, then I would love for you to reach out and find her, connect with her. I know I'm going to be connecting with you after we turn off the cameras, and to continue to learn more about what you're doing and how I can be more involved. And yeah, of course, as always, my listeners know that we're going to have all of your links, connections, all that kind of stuff in the show notes or the comments below. So it's nice and easy for people to connect with you. But thank you so much for joining me today. This was, I feel great. I want to like, I'm empowered actually. So thank you so much for showing up the way you did today.
Oh, thank you so much. I had so much fun with you today, and thank you for having me on your show. Thank you, Candice.
Absolutely. And my listeners, you know the drill. The like, share, comment, love, that is really the air high five. It makes such a difference for us content creators. And get in touch. Let us know if what we're doing is making a difference. We love to hear from you. And with that, we will get you on the phone.